Good afternoon. It's AM Dreamingstitcher here, bringing you a monthly update on what I've been up to with my cross-stitching for people who are interested in watching out there in the flosstube community, where we don't do much more exciting than talk about our stitching, but it tends to make us happy because, that's the kind of people we are. I haven't been here since the end of last month, and I figured it was about time. I have no very specific plans for today, except to show you some of what I've been working on. As always, there are some new starts. I find myself really wanting to stitch everything, and I know you can't do that, but I look through things and there's so much of it that I really, really want to do, and life is just not long enough to take care of all of it, and there are so many other things that take up our time that it's difficult to accept that I won't be able to do all the beautiful things I would like to do. But I do have a couple of new starts, and I just thought I would review some of my old things and show you the couple of new things that I have. And really nothing much more exciting than that. And so I don't expect it to be a terribly long video this time. First, I guess I should mention, since it's right out there to be seen, yes, this thing I'm wearing is cross-stitched. I didn't make it. This was a gift from a friend many years ago, before I even started cross-stitching myself. I don't know that she ever stitched much. I don't think she stitches anymore. She's just a friend who had a habit of trying out different things at different times, and one year she surprised me with this as a Christmas present, knowing that I love dinosaurs. So yes, that is a cross-stitched stegosaurus that you see on my shirt. Normally I wear plainer things, but I was so cold last night. I don't know why. I don't live in a cold place, but I was cold last night, so this morning when I got up, I made sure to wear something warmer. Okay, I told you I would start out with a little review, perhaps, of some things that I've worked on in the past, and then move on to the new stuff. I don't know if I'm going to make a habit of this or not, but I feel like I have too many whips and yet not that many whips. And just for people who might be following along or who haven't seen me before, you might want to see what's going on. So last month I showed you progress on my Orenco chart. If you haven't tuned in before, this is a simplified Orenco chart. Orenco is a company that I believe probably has its own website online, but they also sell a lot of their charts through Amazon. You can find them on eBay. They're kind of all over the place. And most of their charts come with 48 colors. This one is what they call a simplified design, so there are only 30 colors in the chart. When they sell and advertise their designs, they always show the original artwork from which the chart is made, rather than showing you what the finished piece will look like. I have yet to find any examples online, although I occasionally go looking, of what a finished Orenco piece turns out to be. So really the only thing I have to go by is my own stitching here. And I did show you this one last month. You can kind of compare for yourself that it certainly bears a resemblance to the original artwork, but it's not as highly detailed, obviously, with only 30 colors, as some of the other computer-generated charting companies out there accomplish with their designs. Anyway, I haven't worked on him at all since last month, but I just wanted to remind you that yes, I still have him, I'm still doing him, and so he's in my works in progress bag. Another one that I have not worked on for ages and ages, but I want to remind you it's still out there, is my Tiffany Wedding, which is the one and only stamped cross-stitch piece that I'm doing. The intended recipients, have been married for many years now. Someday I will finish this, I'm sure, as long as life permits, but it's no further along than the last time you saw it. I keep going through moments where I want to pick it up and continue it. It just hasn't been happening. I am quite sure that it's going to run out of floss before I finish. It is a longer piece than you can see there, by the way. Um, and I'll just have to deal with that floss shortage when it happens, because I have no doubt it's going to happen. But most of these colors do seem to be things that I can match up to DMC. So hopefully when that shortage does occur, as I have no doubt it will, the change in floss won't be too obvious, I hope. So yes, I still consider that a work in progress, even though I've been working on it longer than anything else I have, and it should have been done long, long, long ago. A third work in progress that you have seen just a little of before is this one. Is that upside down? That is upside down. Let's try going the other way around. It's going to look like this. It is called, well, it doesn't ever tell you on here, but on the actual chart they have some kind of name for it. But it's an artiste kit. Just an attractive little garden piece. I've seen other stitchers working on it. I never did get too far with it. I was last working on it when my parent was still alive, and that has been many months, so you know that I obviously haven't done this for a while. But if I can find it, there's a little bitty bit of a start. And by the way, when I lean over and such, I hope it's not too noisy for you. I hope the microphone is working, and I have no idea what you're seeing of my messy room behind me when I do that. I hope it's not too annoying for you, especially those many floss tube watchers I've seen out there who tend to complain of having OCD. How about if we hold that right side up? So that's all I've got so far. Very small start. You've seen that before too. I'd like to work on it, just hasn't happened. And another work in progress that has not changed at all since last you saw it is my Jiffy kit, Fateful Night. I did have a commenter who said something about having this kit also, and that it wasn't too jiffy. But mine, as you may recall, if you have watched before, I've done all of the actual cross stitching. I'm at that stage where the back stitching and French knots need to be happening, and I just haven't been drawn to do that. I do want it done. I like things to be finished. I like them to be done. I don't like them to lie around for a long time. I hope to continue with that soon. And another work in progress that you have seen that has not progressed, but again, I just thought I'd start with a review. A lot of people at the beginning of the year or at the end of last year seem to be doing whip parades of their works in progress, so I guess this is sort of a mini whip parade. I am working on the top of these birds of a feather charts. I hope to do both. I have the materials pulled together for both. I haven't been doing anything with the poor things lately. I keep thinking I'll pull them out and do something with them. But that's all the further they are. I've commented before how the colors don't exactly match what's going on here because I believe their models were not stitched with DMC, although they give DMC color conversions. But things like how straight the line is across the bird's face, I think that has something to do with the color conversions and the contrast in his different grays and so on. I still think he's going to be very cute and very pretty. There will be a considerable amount of back stitching when it's done too. That isn't happening yet. I always save my back stitching for the end. I have seen lots of floss tubers who do their back stitching as they go. I think because it makes the finished portions of a design look so much nicer. But it's going to take just as long, whether you do the stitching first or you do the stitching last. Stitching is stitching. Every stitch takes the amount of time that it takes, and much as I want to see it looking better and more finished, I always save it for the end. And yes, then you end up with things like this where nothing's happening for a long time, but it will get done and it will look good. Okay, the other works in progress, I'm happy to say I have done a little bit of work on. One of them is the very, very special project I told you about last time. I don't have a chart of what it will look like when it's finished. I shouldn't say chart. I don't have a picture, an image. I doubt if anyone does. It's my Torah Project, the one that I told you about that was seeking volunteers around the world to help them complete a stitched version of the Torah. It's a project that was begun by a textile artist, and I feel very privileged, as I told you last time, to be accepted to participate in their project. I am behind. It's supposed to get done within 6 months, and I am still only on my second line. I have no idea what it says. I know what verses it corresponds to. I don't know what it says. But it is coming along. I just really need to pick up the pace. Obviously, I am behind. They're going to be, according to the chart I have, about 11 lines altogether, I think. You can see I'm only on the second one. If I understood what I was looking at in my mailing correctly, I think it was shipped to me on something like the 17th of November. I received it at the very beginning of December. So since we're almost at the beginning of February, I'm 2 months in and I only have 2 lines. That's not going to work. I need to pick up the pace. I need to get going a lot harder and a lot more consistently on this. This, by the way, is about 8 hours of work. I don't normally track the amount of time I put into my stitching at all, but they have asked for this project that you do track it as best you can. They also want you to send in eventually a picture of yourself working on some portion of it. Since I like to be fairly anonymous, I'm not sure what I'll do about that picture. I wonder if maybe I can capture something from one of these videos, if I only knew how to edit, and put that in there. That might count. Anyway, that's about 8 hours of work. Long way to go. And yes, there's still a word missing over here, if you're wondering why there's a gap. For some reason, after I finished the first line, I started to go from this side over, and then the next time I picked it up, I began this side over, and have been continuing that, so they'll meet eventually in the middle, I'm sure. It really is a privilege to be allowed to work on that, and I've got to get it done so that it will be accepted into the project. It would be a shame to spend the time on it and not get it to them within a timely manner. They really need to have it for their planning purposes. Okay, the other work in progress that I can show you before I progress to my new starts would be, you may remember it, I know the name of the piece. It's called His Eye is on the Sparrow. I'm trying to remember without looking for the mental discipline here who the Heartstring Samplery, who the maker is. Heartstring Samplery is the design company, and the piece is His Eye is on the Sparrow, and I have converted all the colors, and when you look at it and think it looks a bit odd, if you've watched it all before, that's because in my not so infinite wisdom, I decided I didn't want to do all the original colors, and I didn't want to pay for a huge and expensive piece of linen. Sorry, that's just me feeling around for the finished project. It will look like that sort of eventually, since I have changed all the colors. It's hard to say. I'm still working up here in the upper corner on the first page. I have done very little to it since last you saw it. But I was saying, if it looks a little weird to you, it's because I am doing it on a apparel linen, because I didn't want to spend the money. And so everything's sort of vertically stretched. Also, I have changed the colors. The only thing I can recall working on since last I showed it to you is down here. I did some more of the green border, and I added this little pale motif that you see. Sort of a snowflake looking motif. So not much. Just took it out, continued it a little bit. I think it'll be interesting when it's done. It'll be certainly bright, if nothing else. I don't know how well my color conversions are working here with these. When I say conversions, I should be more specific, I guess, in case you didn't watch the earlier videos. It was designed for things like Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works, I think, was the other one. And I did not have access to those, nor did I want to spend the money on those, nor did I want it to look faux antique. It's just not my style. So I first figured out as best as possible the conversions to DMC for the colors they used, and then upgraded them. Upgrade is not the word. Then altered them to something that looked less aged. Yeah, I don't know. You might have to look at one of my earlier videos to understand what I'm babbling about. But these are brighter, more modernized colors versions of what the original design would be. So I did a little bit on that one. Okay, that's it for the ones you have seen before. January hit and I suddenly felt the need. Excuse me, I know you're seeing all kinds of mess behind me. Forgive me. Some of that, let's see. There's some Christmas presents back there that haven't been moved yet. Back where? Back under this arm. I'm sure you're seeing those. Yes, that's an Elec plushie, if you know what that is. Don't ask. I didn't have any other place to put them. And yes, there are books piled on the floor. Don't think about it. We had visitors during the holidays, and they weren't supposed to notice, and when they did, we said, pay no attention to the books behind the curtain. Kind of like the Wizard of Oz. I need another bookcase. It is what it is. The other thing I wanted to show you, before I show the two new starts, I'm going to show the tiniest bit of haul. I showed you last time that I had acquired this at my not-so-local needlework shop for 50 cents. Because I loved the design. I wasn't sure if I already had it somewhere in my stash. Guilty confession, I did. I did have it somewhere in my stash already, but this copy was only 50 cents. You know, it is what it is. And I think I told you I was very interested in making these little ones first. These pretty little birds. I love birds. You saw the birds I was working on there. So my tiniest bit of acquisitions, they're over here. You're going to see the junk behind me again. Sorry. My tiniest bit of acquisitions. I will look at this video before I post it, and if everything behind me is too awful, I guess I'll be filming again. Is the fabric for that. So my first attempt at finding fabric for that piece was to go looking for something that looked like pale blue. I have no local source of looking for those things. So I went online and got this piece, this hacked off, chopped off bit of, as you can see, Zweigart, Vintage Belfast, Blue Whisper, approximately 12 by 18. I don't recall if I paid $6.50 or not. And then I got to looking at the chart and found out that pale blue is not really the color that they were using. This eBayer, though, was kind enough to send a little bitty chunk of 32 count Belfast. I guess Belfast is 32 count white, so that I could try that out. It's a little tiny piece, put some little bitty thing on it someday. Anyway, I did get those, but they weren't quite what I was looking for, or what it called for. So I looked again at eBay. It turned out the color that this chart calls for, because it's a very old chart, is, I think, no longer in production. They called for Dove Gray, 32 count Belfast. And I found some. It had to come from overseas, but I got a nice piece of more than large enough 32 count Zweigart Belfast linen. So if I ever do want to do the little birds, I've got the fabric for it now. Okay, January came. January came and the madness took over. Not too mad. I mean, I'm very motivated to start more things. Every day, almost. I think about starting them. I don't. But I showed you some acquisitions before. One that I've had for some time some months now that I acquired last year. I say one, but it's two. My Southwest Decoratives, Pueblo Pottery and Southwest Designs. And then in my last video, I showed you that from my not-so-vocal needle workshop, I added another of those. And one of my commenters, again, might be the same one that mentioned the Fateful Night, I think it was, said he or she could hardly wait for me to start on the Southwest ones. So I pulled out the one I had that was a kit that I've showed you before. I picked it up at a trading post on the Navajo reservation some years ago, quite a considerable time ago. And I thought, when I read the comment that said I can hardly wait for you to start, I said, I can hardly wait too. I've been waiting years. I've been waiting forever. This, by the way, was not my first new start. My first new start on January 1st. I'll show you in a moment. But I didn't want to wait any longer to do the pottery either. It's just been too many years. I keep buying more charts and I haven't done any of them. So it's going to look, supposedly, this is the little photograph that came in the kit, like this. And they are just little things, but they're cute little things. It's going to look like that, and there's my start. I think it's so bright and cheerful. I'm loving the geometry of it. I don't know how well you can see all the ecru stitching in there. It's kind of disappearing into the white from my angle of the camera. But I have it, the midpoint is kind of through here. So I'd say he's about half done as far as vertical distance. The pot shape may not actually be half done because it tapers towards the bottom. It might be a little more than half. But I love the little turtle. I love the bright geometric colors. As I was stitching it, I was thinking some designer, if they haven't already, should sit down and make designs of things like Greek pottery and I don't know, any of these designs. They're beautiful. There's such a simplicity. Aboriginal designs, pictographs, I don't know. I normally like very detailed things. I've said that before. I like things to be very realistic. But when it comes to pure design elements like these pots, I like the contrast of the colors one to the other. I like the geometry of the designs. It's just there's something really soothing about stitching them that I enjoy. So I couldn't wait any longer. I did finally start my pot. There's no reason it couldn't be done already except that I was working on other things also. So that's one new start for the new year. And the other one, of all the choices I had, I don't know why I picked this one, but January 1st came and so many floss tubers were out there with their new year, new start kind of things going on. And it just came to me on the 1st of January. I said, I'm tired of thinking about all these things. I want to start something. So I grabbed one that was open. That's all I had to do with it. It was open. It's one of these Carousel horses that I showed you last year that I got from eBay. I got 3 of them. And this one was sold kind of as is pre-owned, and said the package was open. So when it came, the first thing I had to do was look inside and make sure it had all the floss. So when I was ready for a new start, I said, well, let's just grab that one. I had it in, I wish I could give credit to the floss tuber that I saw these from, but I have several of these boxes, in this case from Family Dollar, that seem nice for keeping projects in. That's in there. You may have seen, as I was putting it away over behind the camera, that my heartstring sampler one is in one of those too. And so not only was this open, but it was already in one of those boxes. So I grabbed it and said, that'll be my start. And the colors, one whole hank had already been separated out because I was checking to be sure all the colors had arrived safely. So really that seemed the logical one. I'm not very far along yet. But it's always interesting with things like this to see how the colors differ from the picture to the actual stitching. In this case, there's not a huge difference, but there's just always brighter a little bit, just a little bit different. And so here he is so far, and one of the things I found interesting was the saddle. If you look at it, it's got a very dark green, almost blackish color underneath the brown of his saddle, and that's their dark turquoise color. It's actually a much brighter color than it appears in the photograph. So there he is so far. A lot of back stitching will eventually go in there. It's going to be a carousel horse. Some of it may not look stitched at the moment, but that's because it's white. And I know white doesn't show up on camera terribly well. But a little bit of him is done, and he is the one I began on January 1st. Excuse me, she. I decided it's a she for several reasons. One, my sister has horses. I've worked with horses enough to know that if this were anatomically correct, which carousel horses never are, that clearly would be a mare, not a gelding or a stallion. And as I was stitching her mane, I was saying that poem to myself about there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead, and when she was good, she was very, very good, and when she was bad, she was horrid. So stitching the little curl, I thought of the way horses can act up, and this one looks like a very frisky horse, and clearly she would have to be a mare. So just putting that out there. I may say guy, I say that a lot, but it's obviously a girl. So that was my new start. I wish I could start so many more. I want to start all of them. I look at them and I've come so close, as I think I said a little earlier, to starting others. It may happen before you see me next month, if I come next month, to flosstube, which I hope to do. But yeah, I want to do them all. I asked in my October video, is there something wrong with me for acquiring all these things? I want to do them all. There's a limit on time. There are so many other, I can't say more important things I need to be doing. Pressing matters. So many other priorities having to do with settling the estate and cleaning parents' home and taking care of work and taking care of business associated with my life and with parents' life and with leftovers from the estate and everything. I mean, there's a lot to be done, but that doesn't mean they're more important than stitching. If stitching is the outlet that keeps us sane or keeps us calm, keeps the stress down, helps us through the day. I was looking at something online recently that had to do with taking care of yourself, I think. And they said something about drawing the line between self-care and self-indulgence. I don't know if cross-stitch is self-indulgent. Sometimes I think it is when there's so much more to be done. I mean, you can see how messy the house is behind me. There's so much more to be done. But I think it's necessary in its own way. And so I will keep stitching, maybe more some months than others. I am not a fast stitcher. Most of the stitching you've seen on those new projects was done in a few minutes before leaving for work, so in the mornings. That's probably why the Torah Stitch project's coming so slowly, because I haven't carved out and set aside big blocks of time to do it. But I will try to do some more on that. You may see some new starts. You may see me working on the old whips. I hope so, because they need to be done too. I want all of them done, even when I want to start new things. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you have watched before, thank you for coming back and tolerating me again. If this is new, I hope you found something interesting to look at and watch. I love to see all the projects other people are working on. It's so nice to see what's being done out there in the cross-stitch community. Some of my projects are very old. That Carousel Horse, I think, dates to the 1980s. The packaging might say. I'm thinking 80s because my duck was the 80s. 1987. I was thinking that. Same age as the ducks I finished. So some of these things are a good 30 years old in their design. Others, obviously, rather newer, like the Torah Stitch project, which only began like 3 years ago. But most of my stuff's pretty old, I have to admit. It's not the newest, snazziest thing. Anyway, thank you for coming. Please watch again sometime if you didn't mind too much. Thank you to subscribers that I have. Thank you for any comments. I'm not very good at responding to the comments. I've said before that I am not by any means a social media expert. YouTube is my only foray into social media. I do not have Facebook, Instagram, any of those things. I can't even change my channel name on here because I don't have things like Google Plus or whatever it is that if you have, you can do things like having a real channel name. But I do enjoy having the chance to come to you occasionally and share what I'm stitching, because I feel it's the one way I can pay you back for all the wonderful things that other floss tubers are posting that give me a way to see and enjoy what's going on with others who love this same craft that I do. I don't feel very artistic at mine. I don't venture into all kinds of fancy flosses and fabrics. I make only minor changes to things like colors at times. I am by no means a designer, but I love what I do and I love seeing what you do. So thank you very much to the watchers and the makers of videos. I appreciate all of you. You all have a great month. I hope that your new year is starting off well, and I hope to be with you to share some more progress again in the future. For now, have a great day or evening wherever you are. Thank you.